Hey friends, this is Lydia with Applique Market. Today I want to talk stabilizers. I've had a lot of questions on them lately, what they're used for, which type to use for which project, and I thought I would give a quick crash course about the various types and what they're used for. So let's get started with cutaway first. There are several different types of cutaway. Most of what a lot of us do are the applique shirts, and most of the applique shirts that we stitch are for children. So I always recommend for knit shirts using a cutaway. Some people use this light or medium weight cutaway. I have never really had good results with this. It's truly a personal preference. My machine and my hoops just don't tend to like it. I get a little bit of puckering and a little too much stiffness. See, it's pretty thick. It's not very translucent. You can't see my hand. This is good for other projects where you do need a little bit more firmness and less flexibility. It also comes in a black. So if you have a darker project, say a dark shirt with dark fabric and threads, this is great to have on hand too. The next type of cutaway is a polymesh. This is actually my preferred choice of cutaway on the applique knit shirts or anything that's a lightweight knit. This is a tightly woven, very thin, you can see my hand through it, cutaway. And it comes in fusible and non-fusible. I actually do not use the fusible. I use the non-fusible, and I use the spray and bond basting adhesive. This is about $14.99 at Joann Fabrics, and I typically stock up when I find the 40 or 50% off coupons. It makes this a really great deal, but I just lightly spray, and then I would hoop that with my shirt. The Polymesh also comes in these little 8x8 squares. This is great for the smaller hoops, like this 4x4. See, it just kind of fits it perfectly. I also use these for my 6x6 hoop. Typically when I'm doing a regular size applique shirt, not a small infant size like this one, but I use this 9x9 Durkee hoop. This fits on my Brother multi-needle, and I would just take this Polymesh and cut off a piece that fits this hoop. So that is the cutaway that I use for my applique shirts. Now let's talk about quickly just for an applique shirt. Like I said, I would hoop Polymesh with my shirt, but then I do something called floating, and that is on lightweight 1.5 ounce tearaway. This is some pre-cut squares. It also comes in a roll, and just a side note, I buy all of my stabilizers by the roll just because I go through them so quickly, and it's a lot more cost effective for me, but they're sold in various different quantities for different prices with different retailers, so keep that in mind. But what floating is, it's when you have something hooped and you put it on your machine, and then you take a piece of tearaway and you just lay it underneath the hoop. So it's still picking it up, but it's not actually hooped with your shirt. So hopefully that makes sense, but I'll try to do an Applique 101 video a little bit later that goes into more depth about that. The next type of tearaway is something I found probably a year ago. It's called waffle weave tearaway. You can see it's got a little bit of a texture to it. I use this more on, towels or things like that. It is the same application. It's good to stabilize, to give your project a little extra thickness, but I like it on projects other than applique shirts. I just find that my lightweight cutaway, tearaway is a little bit easier to tear off from the back of an applique. Now, the lightweight tearaway also comes in a black. Again, this is good for darker projects. Very nice to have on hand. The next thing I want to talk about is sticky stabilizer. Now this is basically a tearaway, but it has an adhesive backing. So you just tear it apart, peel it apart, and this side is sticky, but like I said, it's a tearaway. Just make sure you can see that, it's a tearaway. And you just peel off the back. Now, if you have a multi-needle, you want to use your sticky stabilizer on fast frames. If you have a multi-needle also, you can use them on the hoops, but single needle users, you can definitely use this with your hoops. You just unroll the sticky or sheets, whatever you have, cut it to fit your hoop, and then once you tear the backing off, peel the backing off, you just simply place it on the back of your hoop. You don't actually undo it and hoop it like this. You just stick it to the bottom of your hoop. And once you do that and your sticky is hooped, you can lay your item directly down on top. I typically pin just to give it a little extra security, but it's basically floating, this item, because you're just laying it on top and you're not actually hooping the shirt with it. So sticky is one of my must-haves. I definitely recommend this. The next item that I really like to have on hand, and it's a must with applique shirts, is comfort cover. This is a fusible cutaway. It is what you place on the back of your applique, which is the inside of the shirt. And it covers the stitches, gives them a little security so that nothing, happens to unravel, but it also adds a soft touch against the skin of whoever is wearing the shirt. So as you can see, I typically cut this with my pinking shears just to keep it from fraying a little bit. And all you do is place it on the back of your applique, and then you just press with no steam the iron all around this area. Don't rub it back and forth or it'll bunch up and sort of melt together. So just very lightly press. And that's probably on a medium cotton setting. Again, no steam. And after you wash, this is normal for this to kind of pull up a little bit. All you need to do is just redo that dry iron on there, and it will re-adhere very nicely. So that is another definite must to have on hand. Now the next thing I want to talk about doesn't necessarily have to do with applique, but it is helpful when you have a cap hoop on a multi-needle, or if you're just stitching a cap on a regular hoop. This comes in a long rectangular sheet. It's a tearaway, but it's a very firm, a little bit thicker tearaway. It's probably a little bit thicker than construction paper, but not quite as thick as cardstock. I buy these long sheets, and I get actually 2 cap hoopings out of each sheet. So this pack has lasted me probably about 5 years, but then again, I don't do all that many caps. So that's a good investment to have. Another thing that you want to have on hand if you're doing things like handkerchiefs or in the hoop projects or even freestanding lace, this is called Vilene. This is something that you use when you are stitching a project that you don't want to have the stabilizer on later. It is a cutaway, but it's a dissolvable cutaway. So once you stitch your project on it, you dip the entire thing in water, your project and your stabilizer, and this dissolves away. And now make sure that your item, that you can get it wet. Don't just put any item in there, but typically I use this the most for handkerchiefs, and you can just lay the handkerchief down in there. It dissolves away, let it air dry, and this is gone. So it makes a nice little thing to have on hand. Now last but certainly not least is, well, I say last, I have one more thing to talk to you about, but this is very important. Solvay. I get questions every day. What is WSS? What do you use it for? It's water soluble stabilizer. My favorite brand is Sulky. They call it Solvay. This is basically a plastic topping. It's dissolvable with water. So one side is textured and the other side is sort of smooth, but you can see it's sort of like a plastic wrap, but it has a little bit of a stretch to it, so it's a little firmer. WSS or Solvay is used on top of things with a nap or a pile. That would be a towel, blanket, fleece, terry cloth, anything that has fibers that come up where your stitches would sink down into this. Lay this on top of that item and stitch on top of it, and your stitches will stay on top of that nap. You will not have your stitches sinking down. Now, some people do like to use Solvay on top of their appliques. That's certainly fine. I don't tend to do that just because of time restraints, but a lot of people really like that method and say that it keeps their stitches very nice and on top of the t-shirt. I've never really had problems with my stitches sinking into the t-shirt where I felt like I needed this, but give it a try, see if you like it. It's especially great if you have smaller or thinner wording to use on top of that. So keep that in mind. Again, this is something I buy at Joann Fabrics. Use your coupon, stock up on it. This is a 9-yard roll, but I think they do have another size available, a longer roll. This is a 7 7/8 inch long. So definitely get some of that. Something else that's another topper. This is called Miracle Film. It's a smooth plastic feel on one side, and then the other side is sort of a textured feel. Same application, you put it on top of anything that has a nap or a pile, and you dissolve this with heat instead of water. So you would place it on your item, and when you're ready to get it off, you just hold your iron above it, and it melts it right off of there. I do know that you can also remove these two things with just a pair of tweezers and lots of patience if you don't want to use water or the heat to dissolve it. So, okay, now last but not least is Heat and Bond Light. This is the secret to all great, beautiful appliques. This is basically a sewable iron-on adhesive. So basically it's textured on this side, and you would take a piece of fabric and iron this to the wrong side of the fabric. So once it's ironed on and cools, you peel this off, and you have a piece of fabric that has this shiny layer of this Heat and Bond Light on it. Once you put that on your applique and iron it down, it adheres to the shirt, so it prevents a lot of those wrinkles and puckering that you sometimes see. It just gives it a little bit of extra stability, a little bit of firmness, but you know, it's not enough that you can't stitch through it. So this is available pretty much everywhere. Walmart, the fabric stores. I actually go through so much that I buy it by the bolt. So this is a 17-inch long by 35-yard bolt. I buy this from Amazon, and it's somewhere between $50 and $60 shipped, but it's, like I said, 35 yards, so it's well worth the money. So I'll be doing some more of these tutorials later with some in-depth things like Appliquing 101, so make sure to check out those videos. If you want to buy this applique or any of our other adorable designs, or in the hoop items, or embroidery and applique alphabets, you can find those at www.appliquemarket.com. We also have a Facebook page as well as a Facebook group page, and that's called Applique Market Friends Group Page. We would love to have you join us there. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.